and a very good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're joining us around the world, live, or if you're viewing this after the fact on YouTube. Welcome to SDIG Live. Today is Wednesday, the 22nd of March, 2023. And today, in conversation with Dr. Joseph Nwoye, founder and president of the Systemic Diversity and Inclusion Group, we have Dr. Lulu. Dr. Lulu is an award-winning author. She's a US Air Force veteran, a retired pediatrician, and life coach. Her life vocation, amongst a number of other professional pursuits, is working to end youth suicide by helping parents to accept and understand their LGBTQ IA+ children. You are very welcome to connect with Dr. Lulu on LinkedIn, and you will find links to all of her work live during this one-to-one conversation for the next half an hour, and also on our YouTube channel, systemicdiversity.org. On Dr. Lulu's website is a wonderful quote. She says, "When I was 16 years old, I told my Nigerian father that I liked girls. He didn't yell. He didn't get angry at me. He did not disown me or make me feel bad and somehow inadequate. He did not say anything to make me regret what I had just revealed to him. Instead, he kindly told me his thoughts." Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce the founder and president of the Systemic Diversity and Inclusion Group and the moderator for today's conversation with Uchenna, Dr. Lulu Umeh, Dr. Joseph Nwoye. Dr. Nwoye, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adam. I appreciate it. And I want to welcome Dr. Lulu. I love the way Adam had expressed whom she is. And we all know that we are at the time in history where those who had always been marginalized are no longer going to take it. And anyone that hasn't had it should hear it. That time is over. And SDIG was founded on the view that people should have opportunity to be who they are. And the group provides safe, open, and inclusive engagement and awareness generation space. We foster individuals and groups learning through our posts, shared stories. It makes me to remember Adachi, who had, whose TED Talk had been everywhere, which the title I think was something along the line of the danger of a single story. And each and every one of us, has his or her own stories. Some people have opportunity to tell their stories. Some people don't have opportunity to tell their stories. And some of them are bad stories. Some of them are good stories. And the question becomes who decides. I was reading Dr. Harshi's book where he was talking about common curriculum, that if people get to learn common things of value, then people would understand the meaning of loving one another. And he framed it along the line of Declaration of Independence, which we kind of shaped and put instead of men, all men, we said all people. So I'm so glad that Lulu is here to add her voice to this important discussion. So without really going into too much, she has litany of achievements that are not very common. So I'm not gonna go into that one, but you are all welcomed to look into her work. She's able to communicate well. She's able to articulate who she is. She also able to write them up. So whichever channel that fits you, she provides you the opportunity to gain a deeper and broader perspective as to who she is. So, Dr. Lulu, you're welcome.
Thank you.
I wanna start by asking you, because as this environment where we explore ideas, shared experiences, values, and doing things in a way that it elevates not one person but all of us to a new and higher contour of knowledge acquisition. Because with knowledge, we'll be able to expand and do greater things. But if we become ignorant based on whatever our culture may have imposed on us, we lose so much. So without going any further, I think I would like you to tell the community who you are. If you can take 7 minutes, if you want to take 10, please go ahead and do that. And talk about yourself. Tell the world who you are. Tell them why you are focusing on what you are focusing. I have a congressman here whose a nephew passed away as a result of suicide, and he is advocating for ending those things. He's everywhere working on that particular thing. I'm sure he will embrace your perspective. So I would say for you to go ahead and tell us who you are.
I think it's probably best to ask how much time you have, because if you give me a microphone, I will take up all the time. But thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you for the space. I speak 9 languages fluently. So if you hear me break into Yoruba or French or maybe even Chinese or German, just roll with it. But since I'm in San Antonio, Texas, I'm going to start by saying muchísimas gracias de mi corazón, and bonjour for those who speak French, and Ndibayi Daluno for my Igbo family.
I love that.
I really appreciate the space. I want to say thank you to everyone who's taken their time to come and listen to me. I am a very, very passionate advocate and a very, very passionate and aggressive activist. So don't be fooled by my I don't know, anything at all you think about first impressions, because I'm a tigress when it comes to what I like and what I believe in. My own father says, he uses the word Herculean to describe me every time he talks about my achievements. He says, you have Herculean achievements. And my dad is a man of big words. I dabble in big words, and my eldest kid also is a person of ginormous words. So when we're playing Scrabble, it's a problem, you know. However, I was born, bred, buttered, and slightly burned in Nigeria, which is one of the most homophobic countries in the world, as well as one of the most religious countries in the world. So read between the lines. I am 50 plus years old, and very proudly so. I think 50 is the new 50. And I am very thankful that I have come into all of myself now in my 50s. I used to give a lot of fucks, if that's even allowed on your show, but these days I ran out of fucks to give. So I could care less about what somebody thinks about being a Black woman, an immigrant, a physician, a mom, and an advocate for my child. There was a time when I would worry about, oh my God, I'm not going to say this, I'm not going to do this because I don't want such and such to think such and such. But now I know that everybody's going to think what they're going to think, and I'm also allowed to think what I want to think. And so I say what my brain offers me at any point in time. So I'm very, very, very excited about the conversation we're going to have today. It's about something that's very near and dear to my heart. I'm very proud of being myself and being my child's mother. And that's pretty much, that's the sum of it right there. So thank you.
Well, you're quite welcome, and our audience, I believe, have seen a glimpse of your work. 9 languages, folks. How many of us can speak 3 languages? I say 3 because I can speak 2. So
actually you can speak minimum of 3 because you're Nigerian. You definitely speak English. You most likely than not speak Igbo, and you speak broken English. Sometimes we underscore that. Broken English is a bona fide language on its own, and not everybody can speak it. So you, my friend, speak at least 3 languages that I know of. Without even asking you, I can tell that you speak those 3. So I love communicating. I love understanding people, and I love being understood. So when I realized that if I said Assalamu alaikum by walking into the room when I have a mom in a hijab, I would help the mother realize that I am a good doctor and a friend, and she can tell me what's going on with her child. I said, you know what? Then I should learn Arabic, because that's what the woman understands. So I believe in speaking people's languages. If you meet them where you are, then you can take them to where they need to be. And so that's my original quote. So yeah.
amazing. I never knew that I could even claim that I can speak 3 languages. So that's refreshing. Again, as I said earlier, when we engage with people, listen attentively, guess what? We learn things that will elevate us to a new and higher contour of knowledge that will enable us to do other things. The United States ambassador to Nigeria was actually speaking pidgin language, broken language, as Dr. Lulu said, using it to communicate to the public. Again, it fits into the narrative that we're going to be doing things based on what are characterized as human or consumer orientation, not what we think, but understanding the people we're trying to deal with and determine what is it that may be their needs and provide the type of services that could alleviate whatever their issues may be. It's no longer when people package things like industrial revolution and you hope that they're gonna take it. No, it's no longer the way. If businesses do what other people do, I'm an educational critic. I say, look at education in context of consumer orientation. But what you will still have is industrial model of education. And that's why we damage so many people. They cannot succeed because they lack the foundational aspect of it. And those whom I consider ignorant with fixed mindset will say, oh, Black people don't do this. Oh, that's a woman, women don't do this. But Dr. Lulu has shown us by example when she talked about things that make Muslim people to be happy. I know that Adam will be smiling when she made comments about that. And it takes a special person to understand those type of things among all human beings. And we may have a question on that as we move forward. All right. Okay. Dr. Lulu, I'm going to ask you a few questions and have the audience ask you questions because usually their questions are so important in the work we do. So the first question I would like to have to ask you is, physicians are rare. We don't have enough in all parts of the world. People in third world are saying that the Westerners kind of take all the brilliant ones and put them in their communities, and then we are lacking big time. So as a physician who understand all the values, all the attributes, all those type of things associated with such achievement, why did you leave that profession to focus on this one, which I think perhaps in my mind, more important, considering the number of people dying. But why did you leave that? And if you would, at the same time, what do people that care for you or know you well say about that?
I didn't actually leave medicine. I have my stethoscope hanging on the wall there. So I did do what I call a stethoscope hanging up ceremony, AKA retirement. But I'm like Michael Jordan. I keep coming back because I can. As a matter of fact, last week I saw patients for a whole week at a clinic where the owner went for spring break. However, it's not my primary source of income. Medicine is now my passive income, if that even makes any sense. And yes, all of my friends thought I was crazy, which is usually what people think, right? When someone is a rebel or a renegade person, everyone thinks, you've lost your mind. Everybody thought Jesus was crazy. Everyone thought Noah was crazy. People thought Harriet Tubman had lost it. I mean, it just is, right? Once you're doing something that no one else is doing. My friend Emeka took me to Starbucks to talk sense into my head. It was like, listen, you cannot leave medicine to become a therapist. What are you doing? And so I said, first of all, I'm not becoming a therapist. Second of all, I'm not leaving medicine. I am leaving prescription writing. So I don't write prescriptions for penicillin anymore, but I'm still always going to be a healer. And this time around, I'm healing hearts, I'm healing families, I'm healing the society, which is bigger ever, as you mentioned, than writing a prescription in a room. I just thought to myself, I can be in a room and see 30 patients very well every day, which I'm an amazing physician, but I can also talk to 30,000 people or 30 million people, maybe even, and not have to write a prescription for penicillin. Because I realized a long time ago that while the prescription, at least in America, the prescription rates for antidepressants quadrupled in the last 3 to 4 years. Suicide also quadrupled in the last 4 years. So that math is not mathing. I don't care what anybody says. Yes, they want you to believe that depression is the reason why people kill themselves. And they want you to believe that depression is caused from a chemical imbalance because wait, it's a $400 billion business to write a prescription. But I dare to say trauma is the reason why people get depressed. If nothing happened to the 2-year-old and the 4-year-old and the 12-year-old, they will not want to kill themselves at 16. So let's face the facts and let's tell the truth. You can't sit and just pretend to believe that whole governors are calling for your extinction and then you be jumping up for joy. It's high trauma. There's a lot of trauma when your parents turn their back on you, when your church turns its back on you, when society turns its back on you. It's very traumatic. So let's not pretend that all these things we're saying have no effect. They have effect on people. I'm a Black woman in a country where Black women are not even allowed to exist. Let's just be honest. Anything I say, someone is trying to find a way to explain it that I'm angry or I don't deserve it, which is why my pronouns on LinkedIn are pay her hers. I don't work for free. Nobody works for free. You don't work for free at your job. And so, yes, it's trauma. And I realized it a long time ago when one of my patients killed himself. So I said, you know what? This is not the way it should be. I need to figure out why young children want to kill themselves. And I couldn't do that in a room while I'm writing prescriptions. So yes, I took a huge pay cut, but I realized it's not about the pay cut. It's about the lives that I'm saving. And the fact that I know I can't save everyone, but I can do my best and try to save those that I can. And so that's why I put medicine on the back burner. But I still have my license. I still practice medicine. It's just no longer my main source of income. And I'm very happy. I'm very, very happy.
I am indeed happy for you. You are living in what Sir Robinson, former British psychologist who passed away, but he used drawing to dramatize what goes on in education, where you move from one place to the other. By the time you get to some other place, you are crazy. You get to some place, some people label you whatever they want to label you. Yes.
Yes,
You're right.
Ken Robinson's TED Talk, I think it's officially one of the most watched, if not the most watched TED Talk in the world. Sir Ken Robinson, amazing human being. Yes, and I think I didn't mean to cut you short, but I think what the reason I'm very proud of doing what I'm doing is I said I was going to retire at the age of 52. I wanted to retire after 30 years of practice. And when the time came, I did it because I can. Because it's also important for us to realize that we are who we are. We're not what we do. And medicine is just what I do. It's not who I am. Who I am is all encompassing of everything else. And being able to just say to people that, you know what, I can give myself permission to retire if I want to. And retirement doesn't mean you're going to stop doing it. It just depends on what it means to you. But retirement for me means I'm going to put this thing aside and then do something else that is a bigger calling, actually. And to me, I think that's education, knowing when you should pull the brakes, right? And knowing when to call a timeout and knowing when to throw your towel in and say, I'm done doing this because it doesn't work for me anymore. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that's why I love Ken Robinson's model of education.
In fact, I had my graduate students write about the man. I had them watch the one he discussed about school, why some people don't succeed. In this day and age, you hear people talk about, these kids, they cannot perform. Or things like, what do you expect? But the fact remains that those who are in academia, they know why. Certain students, when you don't provide them with the foundational aspect of what you want them to do, they're not going to succeed because there's a gap. I usually use stairway to illustrate. In any classroom, PhD, law degree programs, kindergarten, the stairway represents, each step represents people within that confined location, and their knowledge is limited to what they know within that particular location. And then if you keep going up, you see the expansion going. Interestingly, those at the top are those who are provided with prerequisites. So they seamlessly move forward, but those who are behind remain behind. I have to be candid with you. That's where I disagreed with President Obama. I loved the man, but I didn't like his position and how he characterized, at least once I heard from him, characterized students who were doing poorly. The issue will be, what are they lacking? Again, tap into consumer orientation model, meet their needs, and you let them free. But it's
and
not
that's the definition. That is a true definition of equity, right? Equality, like I said on my page one of these days, I said equality means giving everybody a shirt. Equity means giving everybody a shirt that fits. So just because you give me a shirt doesn't mean it fits. But if you give me the shirt that fits, that's equity. And my own example I use is usually a beauty pageant. When you have a beauty pageant, the truth is never the most beautiful woman in the room that wins. Because first of all, it's not all the beautiful people in the world that are competing. Some of them have the opportunity to go that far to compete. But a lot of them, the more beautiful people didn't even get an opportunity. They didn't even hear that there's a beauty pageant. So beauty pageants they never pick the most beautiful person. They pick the best of those who competed. Because the most beautiful people probably didn't even compete.
You made one of the important points you made when you talked about trauma is why people get depressed. And that very statement can apply in many circumstances, many situations. the most divided time in the United States is during the church, when people go to their respective ratio-driven churches. It makes you to wonder, what kind of church do we pray? Then you talk about, look at, if you feel marginalized, the sort of feeling one feels when he or she is the mix of people whom the person knows, regardless of what the person may be told, that these people don't like me. And the artificial things that may be doing to change that, the truth thing, it doesn't change the situation. And those are things that could cause depression. It could cause trauma. You go to classroom, if you feel like you're not part of it because your history is thrown away. That's why sometimes I shake my I shake my head whenever I hear people saying, there should be nothing like teaching critical race theory. Sometimes I say, you know what we're gonna do? It's because we don't do it because it hurts our children. First, they're lying to their children. And from historical perspective, history is the study of past events. My 5th grade teacher told me this, and that thing stuck with me.
Yes. Yeah.
And if you don't study history, how can you correct the atrocities like Nazi and so on and so forth? So that particular statement could be applied in many ways. And with reference to the job, see, what you see is like people are prisoners to their jobs. You see the report that is coming that most people don't like their job. They are in the job because they want to, that's the only source of livelihood. If you don't have it, that's it. And that's why people stick in the job they hate. So,
and that is even that is a mindset. Even that is a fixed mindset. It's not true that that's all you can do. It's not true. Most people, they look at me and they think I'm crazy. They're like, wait, you went to medical school and then you walked away from medicine? I'm like, yes. Because it's just, which one can we walk away from? You can walk away from anything you tell yourself to walk away from. If it doesn't serve you anymore, walk away from it. Whether you're looking at a job, you're looking at a toxic marriage, you're looking at, any kind of relationship that is no longer working, you have the wherewithal to walk away from it. But because your mindset is fixed, you're thinking in your mind that this is all you can do. This is the only thing you can do. I don't need to brag, but it was only last year, September, that I was interviewed by Oprah. I wasn't interviewed by Oprah as a physician. I was interviewed by Oprah because of the work that I'm doing right now. So the point is, and obviously I don't know if I was still a physician, maybe the work maybe I would have still been interviewed. It doesn't matter to me. The point is, I got that opportunity because of the work that I'm doing in the space that I'm doing it and how I'm doing it, and because of who I am, because I gave myself permission to say, you know what, this work, I've done a very good job of it. It doesn't serve me anymore. I want to know why kids are killing themselves. Why would any child want to kill themselves? And then I started looking into it. And I realized, wait, they're being bullied. And they're not just being bullied at school, they're being bullied at home. They're being bullied at church. They're being bullied on the bus, on the playground. They're being bullied everywhere. So they're being traumatized on a daily basis. So for them, suicide is a better option. Now, what kind of world is that? What kind of world is that? That is so toxic that somebody will prefer to end their life rather than live. We have missed the mark if we think that that's a good world. If we think that God is going to come to this earth today and be happy with the way Christians are Christianing or whoever is doing whatever they're doing, we have it all wrong, because children are not supposed to want to kill themselves. Let's not fool ourselves in any which way. And then the more I looked into it, I realized, wait, a lot of these kids are LGBT. Wait, a lot of these kids are transgender. Oh, Their biggest problem is that their parents are disowning them. Their parents are forcing them to not be who they are. Okay, we need to fix that. So I'm not going to sit in my office writing a prescription for penicillin for strep throat for $250,000 a year as a pediatrician when there's one child whose parent today believes that they know what the child should be. I need to leave that $250,000 a year and figure out what's going on over here. If it means taking a pay cut. And I think just bringing us back to what you're saying, the means of livelihood is the quote unquote pay cut. Nobody wants to, oh my God, it's the money mindset. I don't want to not have any money. But what is money really? It's a means for exchange of something. So if you can create it one way, you can create it another way. But isn't that Zig Ziglar that said, if you give enough people what they want, you will get what you want. So you just got to do what it is that the world needs. And that's what Jesus did. Jesus wasn't rich, but he was the biggest influencer of all time. He had how many thousands, billions of followers, since this world is about followership now, you know? Jesus was the very first influencer. He was the first teacher. He was the first educator. He was the first rebel. Jesus was not a conformist. There's nothing about the life of Jesus that was conforming. When he was 12, he told his mother, "What do you mean you're looking for me for 3 days? That's not my problem. Did you check my father's house? Did you figure out that I was going to be doing the work that I came to do?" When he was a young adult, he said, "Woman, my time has not come yet. I don't want to do any miracles." Jesus was a rebel. So when people are thinking, they're not thinking about Jesus, the man. They're thinking about this person that is out there making all these rules. But when Jesus walked the earth, the only people he complained about in the Bible were the people that were the Pharisees and the Sadducees that were praying for everybody to see them. Today's Christian. That's who Jesus complained about. He hung out with the prostitutes and the tax collectors to make a point. That's what Jesus did in the Bible. There's no story about Jesus that does not talk about him hanging out with the tax collectors and the woman at the well. And so this is what we're called to do, to see the lowly, to see those who have been ostracized by the community. The woman that they brought to him that they wanted to stone to death, he said to them, whichever one of you has never committed any sin to strike the first stone, I'm going to be over here writing on the ground. And then he looked up and said, what happened? Nobody stayed to stone you? He never was known for conforming. So I don't want anybody to tell me anything about being a Christian today if your first rule is you must come as this, that, otherwise don't come. That's not what Jesus did. That's why he was killed, because he did not follow the rules. Might I remind anybody who needs to be reminded of that? And I don't know how I got here, but that's where I am right now with this conversation. So.
Well, I think you should continue to stand that ground and continue to articulate that point. I do believe that those who pay attention and listen will gain something that could help to ameliorate the situation. I think this would be a segue for me to ask you another question before I send you to the audience. This morning, I received a note from someone I respect immensely, who had planned to do a series for SDIG, but we haven't really gotten that because of her schedule and how it's working with us too. I'm confident that she'll be communicating with you because she made a comment about this is wonderful. Now, with that, I want to ask you a question. People that are being traumatized, parents, government officials that don't know what to do, they can never concede that they don't have the answer. Schools, physicians, etc., etc. What would you you tell them? What would be your advice for them to tame this horrible situation where people are killing themselves and nobody seems to put his or her finger on the real problem? A former senator of New York, Monahan, said that you could have your opinion, but not that you cannot. Facts are not different from opinion. I mean, facts are different from opinion. So you can have your opinion, but not the facts. So what would you tell these individuals, organizations, social workers, medical practitioners that some of them I may say, one of my friends is one of them, they know all these things, but they don't understand individuals. What would you tell them to learn from you in order to structure their work in a way that they make meaningful difference, as you articulated so well?
Actually, I'm not going to ask them to do anything to learn from me, because I'm not saying anything that is out of the, I'm not saying anything that is new. I'm literally just presenting it in my own way. I want people to always learn from themselves, because you're always your own best teacher. They need to go back to their past, to their childhood, to when they were younger, to a time in their life when they were different, or when they were quote unquote new, or when they were outed as being not the norm. Everyone has had that experience, including you, Dr. Nwoye. Everybody has had a time when they were the new kid in the class, or they were the one that didn't have, I don't know, maybe the different shoes, or they were something different. I need everyone to go back to their own self and ask yourself, how did that feel? Emotions are from where we usually act. Most of us have thoughts about something, and then the thoughts create feelings. And those feelings, aka emotions, are usually from whence we act. We carry out actions or we say stuff. They need to, I mean, of course they won't, but that's the truth. They need to go back to a time when they failed, or when they thought they failed, but they didn't really fail, or when somebody said something to them that they didn't like. Tap into that emotion and see what it is that your child is trying to tell you, or all the children are trying to tell them. My upcoming TEDx talk is actually about parenting as a student. A lot of times when we have a child, even before we have a child, we start dreaming and preparing and planning for this life for them, which many a time does not end up aligning with the child's own agenda, right? But we have all these dreams and plans for our kids. But the truth is, most of those dreams and plans are based on our own shortcomings, our own failures as individuals. Now we want our children to carry the torch, take over the family business, or whatever it is that you dream for your child. But if you come back to the truth, your child is not a mini version of you. Your child is a whole individual. And if you don't believe me, go back to your own self. How effective were your own parents, or how successful were your own parents in getting you to be who they wanted you to be when you were young? Find out that is almost nobody. I know I didn't become who my father wanted me to be. No, my daddy wanted me to be a pharmacist. and there's nothing wrong with that. But I didn't want to be a pharmacist. And then if you look at those children who were quote unquote good kids that obeyed their parents and did all the things right, they're not very happy children, or they're not very happy adults. They did everything for somebody else. They wore a mask. They pretended that they were somebody else. They tried to be who they were really truly not. And I think that's where I want us to go back to. How were we feeling when we were the ones that were in the hot seat, so to say? And know that things that go around will eventually come around. Today, I mean, once upon a time, it was Black people cannot marry white people. Then it was, Black kids cannot go to school. Then it was all Black people are slaves. I mean, it's always going to be something. So while today is a fight against maybe transgender people, one day it's going to be a fight against people who have blue eyes. I mean, once upon a time, it happened, in history. Hitler did his own thing. Those people were not Black. They were just as white as he is. So we always end up finding a reason to out other people. But we forget that once upon a time, when we were the victims, we didn't like it. So I want anybody who can hear me to think about a time when you were the different person. How did that feel? Tap into that emotion and see what it's like for these people today who people are saying that they're not even, somebody's calling for their extinction. I mean, isn't that genocide? Is that what the Bible said we should do? I mean, we have to go back to what is our reason for doing what we're doing. And that's the danger of groupthink, right? Everybody's thinking the same way. Nobody wants to think differently. So I like to be the voice of dissent because everybody thinking the same way is never good. Jesus was not thinking the same way. That's why he was Jesus. He was not thinking the same way. And thank God for that. Because look at where we are today with Uganda, for instance, from yesterday's declaration. Tomorrow now, Nigeria will follow suit. I mean, that's what people do, right? Oh, these people are doing this. Well, let's do what they're doing. These people are our children. They are our brothers and sisters. They are our family members. They are our neighbors. They are our co-workers. They're just asking you to take your knee off their neck so that they can breathe. I don't know what to say besides go back to your own childhood and think about when you were the victim. How did that feel? Come from there and see if you really want to do this to somebody else. We're only on this earth for how many years? Maybe, 75 years at the most. Do good while you're on earth.
Amen. Let me say this because I think if I were to continue with this, we can stay for more than an hour for this because I really like exploring these issues. And there's a saying that goes, experience is the best teacher. And I think I hear you. It's true that people could learn through their own experience. When you make mistake, you learn from it, then you move forward. However, we are not at a time people tend to be reflective. A lot of people lack the ability to reflect. And that's why when people talk about history, I know that history repeats itself. Why? Because people don't reflect.
Yes.
Even some so-called leaders don't think of history and how history can inform them in terms of how they move forward. So without really going into that, that's where I'm asking this formal question. How would you utilize the fact that you're obviously better informed in some of these areas? How would you use it to get those who will otherwise not know? Ignorance is blessed. And if they don't know, they're not going to ever do better. But how could you use your knowledge base to expand that knowledge to reach more people so that those who are facing these traumas could be limited to a lesser number? And after that, I think we're going to shift to the audience for the question they may have for you.
Yeah, honestly, I'm not sure what to say because we have all been given the capacity to know right from wrong. I live in the state of Texas where we have 45 to 50,000 children today in foster care. This is a public information. So there's a lot of work for the legislators to do. If they really want to help children, they can start there, right? I'm a pediatrician, so I know these numbers. They can start with the kids in foster care. They can start with the kids who are homeless. They can do a lot of good, truly make a difference in a child's life. But rather, they want to focus on, I don't know, gender affirming surgery. Let's put that out there because that's what everybody wants. But did you know, Dr. Nwoye, that the most people who get gender affirming surgery are cisgendered men? Most people don't realize that having a toupee is gender affirming surgery. Having lip injections of whatever they're injecting in their lip or breast enhancement or whatever, those are gender affirming surgery. Nobody's going to call it that. They call it a different name to hide what's behind. And then they tell you that, well, they're trying to save the child from their parents. They don't want the child to be somehow damaged by their parents. Have you ever heard what goes on during conversion therapy? These children are subjected to rape. They are being raped to correction. Did you know that? Most people don't know that. It's not common knowledge. On a daily basis, they are forced to correct them because when they think about the LGBTQ plus community, the first thing they think about is sex. I mean, we're just going to come out and call a thing a thing. That's the first thing people hear. When I tell people I'm bisexual, people hear promiscuous, but that's not what I said. I said bisexual, which is an attraction. And let's go there because I was asked this question on another podcast yesterday. She said, so when you were married to your ex-husband, you know, how did that go in line with your sexuality? And I said, I can ask you the same question. You're heterosexual. While you're married to your husband, how does that play into your sexuality? Are you busy looking around at other people? Oh, it's not monogamy. That's promiscuity. That's a different thing altogether. But people only hear what they choose to hear. Because when my child said, Mom, I'm not sure if I'm gay or not, I heard I'm not gay. That's what I heard, because that's what I wanted to hear. That's what I
Thank you
was
very
preparing
much.
myself to hear. Yeah, go ahead.
Let's go to the audience. Audience, please, whatever question you have, could you just raise your hand? Adam, could you monitor the audience and have them ask whatever question they may have? Please.
Dr. Nwoye and Dr. Lulu, thank you very, very much for this fantastic session of SDIG Live with Dr. Lulu in conversation with Dr. Nwoye. For those of you in the audience, you are now able to unmute your microphones, and therefore do feel free to ask absolutely any questions that you may have. We have about 5 minutes recording time, and if Dr. Lulu is generous enough to spend a few minutes with you after that, then likewise, I'm sure she will be very, very happy to do so.
Okay. Dr. Lulu, what do you think that the African nation, the Union, should do to stop these things that we keep doing to ourselves in terms of the laws that are being passed in Uganda? Do you think they have any power to stop this?
Union, I didn't hear you. Your voice, your words were muffled.
Oh no, what I mean is, like, for instance, you know, like we have the EU comes together to tell another country, we don't like what you're doing. So if Hungary is doing something, the EU comes together. Similarly, we have a group in Africa, but I don't hear them coming out and saying to other members, what you're doing is not acceptable. What do you think about that?
Well, it's not unacceptable to them. What you're
To the
asking
entire-
them to, yeah, what you're asking me is, what do I think a third party is going to say to a fourth party?
No.
It
I'm
depends on
asking if
whether
you think they should say something. That's
and
okay.
I hear you. I hear you clearly. But I'm saying to you, of course, ideally they should. But when we get older, we realize that the only person we can control is ourselves. And so we spend a lot of energy wanting somebody to do something. And I hear what you're saying. Of course, I want to. That's the ideal. But if it's not a problem for them, they're not going to say something, is what I'm trying to say. Whichever union is not going to say to Uganda, don't. Nigeria had an election a couple of weeks ago. We all saw, everybody saw it in broad daylight. No one is saying anything. So people will only say something about what they deem is incorrect. And so the European Union today, whichever union, African Union, they don't think that what Uganda did is incorrect. If they did, they will protest. But look at who is the beneficiary And look at who is the victim. They are both African. So it's not going to bother them. I mean, this is what Dr. Nwoye was talking about. This is history repeating itself. It's African against African. So of course it's not a hello, let them go ahead and kill themselves over there. We don't care. That's what they're thinking. And that is what they're showing. They're showing us by their silence that it doesn't bother them. When the girls were abducted from Chibok 9 years ago, I think, Michelle Obama said one or two things about it. She even went to Africa. She went to Nigeria. What came out of that, though? Again, these are African girls being abducted by Africans. It's not a problem. We're not a priority.
No,
go ahead.
No, what I'm saying though, I don't expect them to say anything. I really don't. But like when I was at the UN, what I said to them of the African nations, if we would stop waiting for the EU or for America or the West to get involved and start to do things ourselves, because we have the wealth. The wealth is there. Okay. If we band together, they literally rape and take what they want, and we keep letting them do it. You know? And that is what they look at. They look and see that we're not united. And because we're not united, they can control.
I hear you. And I agree with you 110%. But also, we're talking about the LGBTQ plus community, who are today assumed to be the scum of the earth. Nowhere is safe for any LGBTQ plus persons. Not in the Europe, not in the Americas, and definitely not in the African continent. So if there was a group of people that anybody will come to their rescue, it will not be these people, though, because of who they are. Because you can decide to quench fires how you want. You can quench fires in America. You can quench fires in Africa. I live in Texas. I'm busy trying to quench fires in my neighborhood, where the governor has said it's okay for somebody to have citizens arrest of me because I affirm my child. So with all due respect to you, and I appreciate your question, for me as an individual today, I just want my kid to come home. I wrote this book during the lockdown because somebody called the police on my 3 children while they were exercising in the neighborhood. My neighborhood where they've grown up for the past 10 years. Somebody called the police and the police came and escorted them home. For me as an individual, as my children's mother, and I guess at this point as an ambassador of my father, my primary problem is my child coming home today because she's transgender in the state of Texas. My son, who is not a transgender person, who went to high school, but he's 6'2" and has dreadlocks. I love the boy. But somebody will see him and say, you know what? You need to die today because you're Black. I mean, so many fires to quench. So I have to pick the fires that I can quench. And those are the motherly fires. And almost without sounding like I don't care about Uganda, I'm going to have to let Uganda take care of Uganda because they know what they're doing. Nobody's saying it's right. I condemned it on my post yesterday. As soon as it happened, within hours of reading about it, I condemned it on my page on LinkedIn. But I also know that they know what they're doing. Just like the legislators in America know what they're doing. There are 400 plus anti-LGBTQ plus laws in America. There's no way America will go and help Uganda because America agrees with Uganda. They're not going to go agree. They're not going to go fight because they agree with Uganda. They don't think LGBT people should be alive and well.
Thank you so much. Could we get one more question in before we close?
And yes, I do have a few more minutes. I have another phone call, but I already told them I was going to run. Thank you for your question, Therese. I appreciate it.
Robert, go.
Hello.
Yes. Hello, I can hear you.
Okay, I was there. Now, my watch says 12 p.m. Is this what we're supposed to be?
Well, could you just ask question? We are getting to the end of it. We just want you to ask Dr. Lulu a question.
I think maybe he's just joining us. It's
Yeah,
11 a.m. now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I think he knows of the work you do and likes what you do. That's why I kind of sent the question to him.
Yeah.
Robert?
So, yeah, please ask.
Well, I'm not sure which question I'm supposed to ask, but I'm LGBTQ, and I've been facilitating diversity classes for 28 years now. And I've gone from major corporations to regional corporations to school systems and the State Department of Education in Georgia. And I'm in Atlanta. The challenge, I guess, for me would be when there is not a national norm and I'm in a regional company, it's unsafe at times. And the more southern it is, the more unsafe it is, with the exception of Wisconsin and Minnesota, which is, where we've had some rioting. So my question is, how do you deal with safety as an issue in training?
That's a good question. I wish I knew the answer because I'm Black. I have intersectional factors that you may not share. As a Black woman, I'm not safe. And I pass as straight. I'm straight passing. I know you know what that means. As a Black woman, I'm not safe to begin with. So my own issues are bigger in the sense that I am also an immigrant. So I am a Black immigrant woman in a country that still believes that Black people should have no rights. This is one of the reasons I'm moving out of Texas. I'm moving to a state that is a little bit more accepting of the work that I do. I wish I could tell you that this is what to do or this is not what to do. My eldest child is transgender. She's a traveling tutor. She tutors SAT and ACT to students. She's always traveling around Texas. I am afraid for real about my child's safety because she's Black and then she's transgender. And you and I know that Black trans women have the highest rate of homicide deaths. So my problems, unfortunately, as a mother and as a human being, what keeps me up at night is not just that, is me being able to have my kids home every day so I can hug them. My youngest child who just came back for lunch, maybe he will come and show himself to Uncle Nwoye. When he was younger, he used to ask me, say, Mom, why are you always telling us to come back? Every time they leave the house to go down the street, I say, make sure you come back. Just make sure you come back. And I'll say it in Igbo, and he knows what it means. And so he said, Mom, why are you always asking us to come back? Why are you always saying that? And I said, because Trayvon Martin went around the corner. He just went to the corner store. He didn't make it back.
Right, I do understand.
So yes. So that's why I mean that just as a Black woman, it's my intersectionality is like, just it comes front and center every time I walk outside of my door.
Well,
come and say hi to your uncle. Dr.
like
Nwoye.
I was going
Dr.
to
Nwoye,
say,
I've made you an uncle. Say hi to him.
Hello.
Let me see your face. Let me see your face.
How are you?
Good. This is my youngest.
Okay, I've had a lot of you. You're growing really into a big guy. So I'm so glad to see you.
Kedu.
Kedu?
Kedu. Say Odima.
Odima.
Odima. Oh my God! He just said Kedu to you. Yeah, I like to embarrass them sometimes. I know I'm not going to hear the end of this, but thank you so much for playing along. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was good. Thank you so much. Any more questions you may have that we can throw at Dr. Lulu if she could respond to that? Anyone? Any more question?
Thank you, Joseph, for your question.
Yeah. Well, if you don't have any more questions, I will transfer back to Dr. Lulu to give us a closing remarks, and then we can wrap this thing up.
I think for my closing remarks, I'm just going to go back to talking to parents, which is that's the audience that I talk to a lot. So the first thing I want to say is I see you and I know you because I am you. I didn't always affirm and I didn't always accept my child. Even as a queer person myself, I struggled. My next blog is titled Confessions of a Homophobic Mother. So get ready for that. I didn't want to be bisexual. I did everything in my power to not accept that identity. We don't get to create ourselves, unfortunately. And the world forces us to be who we're not a lot of times. And it's not any different for your child. So what I'm going to ask you to do is go back to your reasons for wanting to have children in the first place and just love your child. Most kids just want to be seen and heard and accepted for who they are, whether it's being LGBT or having autism or having seizures or whatever it is that your child brings to the table is just one little facet of who they are. It's not everything. And they just want you to love them and accept them and affirm them and not make any plans because that's what we do as parents. We plan for our kids. We have dreams for our kids, and that's okay, except a lot of times the child's dreams are different. And so be okay with the fact that your child might not want to become a doctor, which is what all the Nigerian parents want their kids to be. Maybe your child doesn't have that dream. And so ask yourself, why is it that you want this for your child? What exactly is behind that? What's driving that emotion? A lot of times is your own dreams that you had for yourself that maybe you are unable to bring to fruition. So now you want to live vicariously through your kid. But that's not fair because your parents didn't do that to you. So again, like we said at the beginning, your own experience is your best teacher in this case. And just thank you, Dr. Nwoye, for the opportunity to just come and talk about what is near and dear to my heart. I actually liked the way the conversation went. We didn't really necessarily talk about LGBT parenting. We talked about just life, and what it means to be a Black woman in America today, what it means to be a Black single mother of 3 children. 2 of them are boys and 1 of them is trans. That I think is a huge weight on anybody's shoulder. But by the grace of God, I'm carrying it well. And I thank you for seeing me and seeing the work that I do. And I hope people will reach out. I'm happy to help anybody. I'm a realist. I don't really know how to paint any colors except the colors that my brain offers. So I keep things real. I will tell you like it is. And I may probably tell you what you don't want to hear, but if it's the truth, then we should say it, right? So thank you so much, everyone. And that's kind of all I have. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And for those of you who want to key into the next one, on the 5th of April, we'll be having a reading specialist who is also specialized in a number of areas. When we talk about, neurodiversity, you see how some people are, if you have a ear problem, for instance, I'm not going to go into all aspects of it. If you have ear problem, somebody will conceptualize it as you're having eye problem because the person only knows of somebody who had eye problem. It's like carpenter having a hammer and a nail. So if you want to know more about the latest research on on reading instruction, how you teach your students, how you help your children master the skills they need in order to succeed. That's what I call foundational things that they need to do. If they don't have it, they're not gonna do well. I can tell you that. The individual will be appearing on the 5th of April. Adam, if you could show them the image of the one coming on the 5th of April, I will appreciate it. But if you don't have it readily available, that's okay. So with that, I thank all of you for coming. And for those who want to see the video, I think the media team would be able to get it uploaded either in YouTube or in the new thing on our webpage, where we'll be curating the events that are really of high standard. All right. On that, I will say thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Nwoye. This is the Systemic Diversity and Inclusion Group. This is SDIG Live on Wednesday, the 22nd of March, 2023, featuring Uchenna, Dr. Lulu, Umeh. Our sincere thanks to our special guest. On behalf of the president of SDIG, Dr. Joseph Nwoye, and Dr. Umeh, we would like to finish, for those of you that are joining us, with a few moments from wonderful